motorists to exercise extreme caution as they drive through the city.
Our motorists are urged to exercise caution while driving, extend the safe following distance, and try and avoid crossing flooded roads and low-lying bridges.
In the Western Cape, 2 women have been shot dead and a young boy has been wounded outside Portland's primary school in Mitchell's Plain. Unconfirmed reports suggest the women were fetching their children from school when they were attacked today. The motive for the attack is unknown at this stage. The police's Wesley Twigg.
Crime scene experts are on the scene of a shooting incident in Westport Drive, Mitchell's Plain, where 2 adult females were shot and fatally wounded and a young boy wounded. More details will be released once it becomes available.
The National Prosecuting Authority says it entered into a plea agreement with former Bosasa COO Angelo Grootes because he can help the state secure convictions amid ongoing corruption investigations at the contractor. Grootes was handed a suspended sentence in the Pretoria High Court today. He faced 3 counts of corruption and 1 of money laundering and was handed 10 years for each, suspended for 5 years. This means Grootes will not serve any jail time. Khomotso Modise has more.
Angelo Grootes started singing at the Zondo Commission, revealing alleged acts of crime committed by contractor Bosasa to secure government contracts from correctional services. While he was tried separately for fraud and money laundering, the investigating directorate has pending matters against other accused, including former Correctional Services Commissioner Linda Mti and former Member of Parliament Vincent Smith. The NPA believes Grootes can help them secure convictions in these cases. Investigating Directorate spokesperson Henry Mamutame.
And investigations thereof can be able to source information from him as the key person who was operating in Bosasa at the time all of these crimes were committed. Therefore, we saw it wise that we reached such an agreement with.
While Grootes will not set foot in a prison cell for now, he must cooperate with prosecutors and not commit any similar crimes to keep his freedom. Khomotso Modise, Eyewitness News at the Pretoria High Court.
We move to the capital where suspended head of EMPD Isaac Mapiyeye has accused members of the Ekurhuleni Council of politically meddling in policing matters. Mapiyeye was testifying before the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry today. He accused the former city manager, Imogen Mashazi, of overriding his authority and siding with one of his subordinates, Julius Mkhwanazi. This after Mkhwanazi forged and signed off on 2 fraudulent memorandums of understanding with 2 companies belonging to tender tycoon Vusmusi Ket Matlala. The agreements essentially allowed Matlala to operate with impunity within the city, and in exchange, he provided support and resources for the EMPD. Arun Singh has more.
A case of corruption was opened by EMPD against Julius Mkhwanazi in 2023 after it emerged that tender tycoon Vusmusi Ket Matlala had blue lights installed in some of his private security vehicles. Mkhwanazi held the position of Director of Special Services at the time and allegedly entered into an unlawful agreement with Matlala 2 years prior to allow 2 of his companies to provide support to EMPD in exchange for special treatment. But despite the corruption case investigated by IPID, finding Mkhwanazi guilty of misconduct, nothing has come of the case. Head of EMPD Isaac Mapiyeye says this is both worrying and frustrating as the docket is sitting at the office of the Director of Public Prosecutions in Gauteng.
I tried on numerous occasions to try to access that office of the DPP, but I could not really get joy.
Mkhwanazi was made acting head of EMPD in November last year after allegations of sexual assault were made against Mapiyeye. Arun Singh, Eyewitness News.
And the Cape Winelands municipality says while more support has been dispatched to extinguish a fire, firefighting efforts could continue overnight. 2 houses and a wooden structure have been destroyed by the fire in the Waterval area outside Tulbagh. Another fire burning in the veld adjacent to the landfill site near Wellington is also making its way towards homes. The Cape Winelands District Municipality's Joanne Otto says a 3rd veld fire is burning near Val de Vie outside Paarl.
11 fire vehicles and crews from Cape Winelands stations are on scenes with support from Drakensberg municipality where possible. Firefighters report extremely difficult conditions and operations are likely to continue throughout the night.
Cape Town Fire and Rescue also dealt with a failed fire above Military Road on Signal Hill today, but that blaze has since been extinguished and firefighters continue to monitor any flare-ups. Gold's trading at $3,984.53 an ounce. The rands at 17.40 to the dollar, at 22.80 to the pound, at 20.07 to the euro. Brent crude oil at $62.98 a barrel.
In your sport, the Proteas set a victory target of 270 in their second ODI against Pakistan. No room for sentimentality for Rassie Erasmus ahead of his 50th Test as head coach. And Hugo Broos rules out a Bafana Bafana recall for Thembinkosi Lodge.
A look at your weather. Cloudy skies in store for Gauteng tomorrow with afternoon scattered thunder showers expected. Joburg will drop to overnight lows of 13 degrees and peak at highs of 18. Pretoria is at 15 and 20. Vereeniging will also drop to lows of 13, reaching highs of 17 degrees. Clear skies for the mother city along with fresh southeasterly winds at a low of 18 and a high of 34 degrees. The top story in Eyewitness News this hour. Gauteng Emergency Services personnel are cautioning residents about flash floods, particularly in low-lying areas, as the province grapples with heavy downpours and motorists urged to exercise extreme caution.
EWN, in touch, in tune and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app. EWN Traffic.
On the N3 North, there's still that earlier crash before Van Buren Road with 3 lanes still closed. So you can expect heavy delays. Allow for extra travelling time, or if you can, please use an alternative route. Or if you're on the R21 North, there's a crash at the on-ramp from the Engen or Highveld 1 stop. And on the N1 North, there's a crash on the Beyers Nudia on-ramp. In Tshwane, on the N1 South, there's a crash in the right lane after Proof Plus interchange. And there's a stationary vehicle after Atterbury Road. And in Cape Town, there's structures alight in Kensington on Voortrekker Road between 18th Avenue and Jakes Havel Drive. A contraflow system is in place, and in Tableview, traffic lights faulty at Blauberg Road and Boydegoede. More Eyewitness News traffic at 6:30.
There's more EWN on air, online and on the EWN app.
And now, The Money Show
with Stephen Grootes on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA CIB, advancing Red Rocket's ambitions with Discovery Green as the off-taker to power Africa's future through affordable, renewable energy. Good evening. Welcome to the program. I'm Stephen Grootes. 9 minutes after 6 the time. If you had to think of a top kind of iconic South African television show, in other words, one made here, what do you immediately think of? I mean, do you think of Pumpkin Patch? Do you think of something else? What do you immediately think of? Muvhango would be one, I think. But somewhere right near the top, and probably at the top, the one that you've probably spoken about more to your friends and family than anyone else, is Top Billing. I mean, there was a time when your wedding was nothing if it wasn't on Top Billing. You know, then you just hadn't succeeded, doll. You just were nowhere. And Top Billing is coming back. We'll talk more about it in an hour's time. But Top Billing is now coming back. I don't know how triumphantly it's coming back, but the SABC has, I think, done the right thing. It was one of the big properties that they owned. It was one of the big name properties that they owned in television. And it's coming back. People like to see themselves. It really is as simple as that. So much talk all through the day about the news that broke while we were on air last night. The Please Call Me saga finally coming to an end. And Nkosana Makate versus Vodacom. It was a real sort of David and Goliath thing. So many elements that I think brought so many, made it so interesting. Partly it was also because the legal battles just went on and on and on. Duncan McLeod's been looking at it for a long time. We'll hear from him in just a second. So often we talk about water infrastructure in South Africa. How are we going to fund more water infrastructure? And according to Future Growth Asset Management, the issue is not, is there enough money? There's enough money. The issue is are projects bankable? To put it another way, would you put your pension money into a project that is going to create water infrastructure? Think of all the role players involved. Government, local government, the people who actually have to do it. All of the problems with, for example, that we see time and time and time again with the construction mafia, things like that. That's what we're going to be looking at this evening in about 10 minutes' time. I was fascinated by an interview that Dan Marakane did. He's the Eskom CEO, of course, and done incredibly well there, along with Mteto Nyati. But an interview he did with Business Live, he was talking about electricity for smelters. I know lots of people have been talking about this, but if we don't get the pricing right, smelters are never going to come back. And the only way to get the smelting right, the prices right, is basically if you subsidize the smelters, which would mean that you are subsidizing a private company. I'm not convinced the vast majority of people would want to do that, frankly. We'll look at the SA Future Trust. We're expecting a winner from the summit in the next little while. And, of course, the latest on TikTok. Siphumelele Zondi has been looking at that this evening. Good to hear from you. 011 883 0702 021 446 0567. And, of course, voice notes tonight on 072 702 1702. Just my question to you, really, and it's the end, finally, of the Please Call Me saga. How much money do you think Nkosana Makate should be getting? Hundreds of millions? $1 billion? What do you think he should be getting for the idea? Bear in mind, he was employed at Vodacom when he had the idea. He was an accountant, sure, but he was working for them. Your thoughts? 12 minutes after 6.
The Money Show
With Stephen Grootes, live on 92.7 and 106 FM. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
and DSTV channel 856.
Well, the backstory to the Makate case, the Please Call Me case, is a sort of South African legend. He was working as an accountant at Vodacom. He says he had the idea. He mentioned it to his bosses. They adopted it. They refused to pay him for it, despite a sort of verbal agreement. Court cases have been going on ever since. Fin24, in fact, calculating today that Makate might well get between 350 million and 700 million rand. It's calculated that through the interim result forecast that Vodacom has issued. Duncan McLeod is the founder and editor at Tech Central. And Duncan, I imagine this court case is probably, I don't know, older than your and my careers. Good evening. It's been going on for a long time. Even for a cell phone network, we're talking hundreds of millions of rand. It's a lot of money. Do you think Vodacom just wanted this to be over?
Yeah, I think so. It's been dragging out for so long. The figure I'd love to see is not so much Makate's payout, but how much Vodacom spent on lawyers through this whole process.
Yes.
It must be a huge amount of money too. And yeah, it has been going on a very long time. I was just trying to think whether this has been going on longer or whether it's been South Africa's migration from analog to digital television that's taken longer. I think it's the TV migration, but this has certainly been one of those ones that has just dragged through the courts. It went to the High Court, to the Supreme Court of Appeal, to the Constitutional Court, then back to the High Court, the Supreme Court of Appeal, and back to the Constitutional Court. I don't know of any other case where that's happened, and was then referred back again to the Supreme Court of Appeal, which would have been the third time that court heard it. But now that they've reached an out-of-court settlement, and of course the Supreme Court was due to hear the case in just 2 weeks from now, so there was obviously a lot of discussion going on behind the scenes, and they've now reached an agreement on that court case will not proceed in 2 weeks' time.
I mean, you talk about Vodacom's legal bills. I would imagine Makate has the highest legal bills of any individual South African in history, and I'd include a former president in that, by the way, but no matter. Makate had lawyers, and he had funding, and won't he face not just a legal bill, but I'm not quite sure how it worked, but I got the impression at one point that perhaps people had sort of bought a piece of his legal action. I mean, that kind of thing was new too.
Yeah, I don't have the detail on that, but my understanding was his legal team were doing this on the basis that they would share a percentage of the proceeds if there was ever a favorable outcome for Makate, and that he wasn't paying their legal fees on a daily sort of basis. That they were doing this work on the assumption that they would get a payday at some point. But I don't have any detail on that or what sort of percentage the lawyers might have taken from this. But certainly I think the outcome of this is that the first thing that's happening is Makate is going to hand over a big chunk of money to some lawyers.
There's a bit of a more complicated backstory. So the legend, and I did sort of use that word, and I'm going to stick to it for the moment, but the legend is kind of Makate was an accountant. He worked at Vodacom, had the idea, mentioned it to his bosses, was told to speak to a particular person who, in fact, was on the board of Vodacom. There was a verbal agreement. Vodacom reneged. That's where the court case started, right? But as I understand it, and Duncan, you'll know this history far better than I, there's no patent from Makate, but there is
No.
one from MTN from a person called Ari Khan.
That's right. Yeah, that's the other angle to this whole story. Ari Khan was a contractor working for MTN at the time, and he'd come up with a "please call me" idea. And he had it patented about a month. I forget. This is such old stuff now. Maybe getting the timeline slightly wrong, but I think it was about a month before Makate came out with announced his idea to the team at Vodacom. Ari Khan, who was working for MTN as a contractor, had not only come up with an idea for a "please call me" type service, but in fact patented it through MTN. MTN, as far as I can remember, decided not to pursue any claims against Vodacom, despite the fact that they were implementing the "please call me" technology, which MTN had effectively patented. But yeah, it looks, and certainly Ari Khan claims, that he is the rightful inventor of a "please call me," and that he has the paperwork to prove it, and that Makate was a Johnny-come-lately.
There's another angle to all of this, and we talk about AI technology all the time at the moment. Don't worry, Duncan, I'm going somewhere here. And we talk about how much money you can make if you get into the right thing at the right time. Now, one of the precedents for that is cell phones and cell phones in South Africa and the adoption of "please call me," because that, I think on all versions, was one of the, call it an invention, call it a patent, call it an idea, call it a whatever, but it was taken up probably more quickly than any other kind of idea, maybe even in South African history.
It certainly was proved very successful for the mobile operators, not just Vodacom, but MTN and the others as well. And it was exported. It became a model around the world, in fact. I think a lot of people were tinkering with this idea at the time, and it's possible people in other markets around the world were also experimenting with the idea of "please call me." But certainly the most sort of strongest early indications of this concept appears to have come out of South Africa, and there's no doubt it's made billions and billions and billions of rand for mobile operators in South Africa and for operators around the world, in prepaid markets particularly, where consumers can't afford to make a phone call and they want someone to call them back.
And life has changed so much. Now you would just do it on WhatsApp, wouldn't you? I mean, the whole idea has almost fallen away.
Indeed, although you do need an active data connection with WhatsApp, and many people don't have that. So I think "please call me" is still to this day, despite the rise of voice over internet calling, "please call me" is still a very popular service.
Duncan McLeod, really appreciate that. Thank you very much indeed. Bit of a deep dive into the history there, the founder and editor at Tech Central. While he and I have been talking, some of your WhatsApps coming through. Matthias saying Makate rightfully should have received, he's given me a lot of digits here, 0.00000000.00 rand. If my employer paid me for each of my bright ideas, I'd be a billionaire. But I'm not. You use the word entitled. You go on to say he's shameless. Andrew says you should get nothing unless there's cast iron proof of a valid verbal contract. It sets a dangerous precedent. Employees have ideas every second of every day. Interesting point so far. You might well go the other way. 072 702 1702.
The Money Show on 702.
Monday to Friday, 6 to 8 p.m.
A suggestion from Future Growth Asset Management that one of the real problems in developing our water infrastructure is not a lack of money or capital. It's really a lack of projects that are bankable. And I suppose what we're talking about is whether you would put your money into a water project. I don't need to remind you of the dire need we have for water infrastructure in South Africa. Jason Lightfoot is a senior portfolio manager at the Future Growth Asset Management. Jason, good evening. You say a shortage of projects that are bankable. What do you mean? Do you mean, let me put this politely, there's a shortage of projects where you can actually trust you'll get your money back?
Great. Thank you, Stephen. Thanks very much for having me. It's great to be on your show. So I think before we get there, there's really two aspects that are converging. We've seen worsening infrastructure from a water point of view, aging infrastructure, poor maintenance, limited municipal capacity coming through, particularly in Joburg. And secondly, more recently, we've seen the introduction of some innovative finance solutions, such as blue bonds, for example, blended finance. And ultimately, what we're trying to make clear is that the constraints aren't really around capital; it's around the bankability theme. And what do we mean by bankability? It's really around ensuring that projects meet requirements that allow institutional investors with fiduciary responsibilities to be able to deploy capital. And we've got 9 of those that apply. So it's things like regulatory certainty, policy alignment, robust legal agreements, alignment of interest, fit-for-purpose projects, and obviously some recourse mechanisms as well, and therefore ensuring that there are cash flows that are able to meet the debt requirements. So if we look at prior examples, the Renewable Energy Program was a great success. We've had about 250 billion rand that was deployed over a 13-year period with about 0 defaults.
And that was private capital, right? Yes, the end client was largely Eskom, but it was private companies. Is the issue with water that it's not private companies, it's government entities and often local government entities?
To some degree, that is correct. You need to ensure that the underlying off-takers are signed. And ultimately, if you look at from a water point of view, the municipalities are involved there. And obviously, we all know that differentiation is critical here. Not all municipalities are created equal. Obviously, I'm not going to name and shame, but some are better than others. Where we need to then create a scenario where we leverage off the bankability theme to ensure that those ideals are met, to ensure that you can ultimately provide funding from a retirement fund.
You suggest there needs to be proper risk sharing. What do you mean by that? I mean, what creates a bankable project then? It obviously means that someone else needs to be at risk of losing something.
So ultimately, it's not a case of that, the only lenders are going to take the pain if something goes wrong. So you need proper risk alignment between, ultimately government can play a role by providing guarantees as an example, but risk sharing between both debt holders and equity funders in a scenario like that.
Would it help, Jason? I mean, this is probably impossible to do in the current context, although I'm aware of one sort of privately owned water network. I think in KZN, someone emailed me once and said there's another one in Gauteng. But I mean, I would imagine that would be a good place for sort of, a couple of practice runs at this. You really would be looking for projects that you can make a long-term profit on, and the need for the capital is so obvious.
Yeah, I think from a water point of view, I mean, it's not necessarily just a private sector issue. We are part of the solution, but not the entire solution. So if you think about it, municipal water infrastructure requires multiple funding sources. So national grants, as an example, municipal own revenue solutions, development finance institutions, and obviously some commercial returns coming through as well. So each player does have a role to play. But ultimately, as lenders, we need to ensure that we achieve commercial returns for the loans that we are providing.
One of the things about the Independent Power Producers Program and the way that was run was there was a very specific office, and people had, it seems, very high regard for the people running that office. There are people who have very high regard for the people who run Operation Vulindlela, for example. Could there be the creation of a government entity run by people that you trusted, essentially, that capital trusted, and that would go some way to helping? In other words, the names of the people involved really do matter here.
No, that's very much so. Obviously, Operation Vulindlela Phase 2 has done a great thing, obviously now with water being one of their key priorities and focus areas. And we do see some legislative reforms coming through, the Water Services Amendment Bill being introduced, and NRIA as well, in terms of driving reform through in those areas. But yeah, we definitely will likely see some form of private sector involvement at some point.
Jason Lightfoot, really appreciate the time. Thank you. Senior Portfolio Manager at Future Growth Asset Management. 25 minutes after 6.
The Money Show.
The markets.
Norman McKechnie is an independent investor. Norman, good evening. Quite a few updates today. Let's start with Truworths. It seemed that the South African market not growing very much.
Yeah, I think that's right, Stephen. I think if one looks at it, it was certainly a weak trading update. The sales Africa SA were down sort of 4%. Credit and cash sales were also weak. I think they've adopted a more cautious approach. But yeah, it's probably a reflection of the Truworths customer. being under pressure, and Truworths obviously looking to scale back some of the account sales. But the UK was reasonably positive. But yeah, sort of net, I think it is a reflection of just where the consumer is in SA.
It's an interesting decision to actually tighten your credit requirements. I mean, clearly they felt they needed to do that, and they would have known that this would be the consequence.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think although what they also did do, which is probably a reflection of them looking at their credit sales, is their overdue accounts improved. So they obviously, it looks like they put in more discipline there in terms of what they addressed within the business with regard to new accounts, etc.
Motors having a very strong day. They also had an update. New car sales are up.
They are. Again, what's interesting is this probably is another segment in terms of the SA consumer. Obviously, well, I think what you've seen is a lot of the imports that have coming in are coming in at fairly competitive prices. We saw new car sales up there, up 20%. I think that was in line with the market. Used car sales were also growing. The car rental business was probably in line. Again, they've got UK businesses, as has Truworths, and the retail side was positive. After sales were good. They have a heavy vehicle component to their business, and that actually came under some pressure. And then Aussie was probably in the used car area was better than expected. So yeah, net are doing reasonably well if one looks at the exposure to consumers in all three of those geographies.
It's interesting. We spoke to the We Buy Car CEO last week. They had a bad outlook. You may recall that their share price dropped dramatically last week or the week before.
Right.
And they seemed to say that, yes, people were buying cheaper, new Chinese models rather than second-hand cars.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think what people, the prices are pretty competitive. And I think people have looked at that and said, well, we'd rather pay a little bit more. Get a new car than a second-hand car, and I think that's probably put the second-hand car market under a bit of pressure, and that's clearly where We Buy Cars are exposed.
Sappi, a complicated update, and quite a strange impact on the share price. So they made a big loss. They did say that the near term is going to be tough. Their share price shot up this morning and then dropped back today.
Yes, it did. I think if one looks at it, I mean, I think clearly what they said, there were trade tensions, lower selling prices. They did gain some market share in Europe, which is positive. But I think, in essence, prices coming under pressure. They have made a loss. I think they made about $115. They're now down almost sort of 80% of that at $83 million loss. Yeah, I think sort of net, but the market must be looking for what is probably a bottom, whether that is likely to occur. We've seen interest rates being cut in Europe, and maybe that's what the market is looking through, because the market does tend to discount the next year. But I think we're still probably in a bottom area, and maybe the anticipation is a little bit early. We've seen that before with Sappi, but certainly demand remains under pressure, and I think that must be some cause for concern.
And then First Rand were down slightly today. They gave an update suggesting that they might actually have to raise the provision for what happened in the UK. This is the sort of car mis-selling issue that they were exposed to.
That's right.
It's been going on for a very long time. They would not have been very happy with this.
No, certainly. I think that Aldermore acquisition, they did basically, I think if one looks at what they raised as provisions, there were two lots of provisions. The last one, I think, was in September, and that was 2.7 billion. The total is 5 billion, and they look like they probably have to increase that further. Essentially what we had was the failure to disclose the commission on motor finance in the UK, and they've decided that the total bill will come to about 700 pounds per customer, the average that will be paid back, and the total bill is about 8.2 billion. That's for all financial companies in the UK, and clearly Aldermore, which is part of First Rand, has a slice of that. So it looks like they'll have to add to that provision. That certainly is the current feeling in the market.
Norman McKechnie, thanks so much, independent investor. It's just gone 6:30. Marky, good evening. The city of Joburg and informal traders, what's the latest?
Well, the city of Johannesburg says it's concerned that informal traders in the metro appear reluctant to register for trading permits. Stephen, good evening. Earlier this week, the Gauteng High Court gave the city a 2-week deadline to verify street vendors and allocate them trading stalls in the CBD. The city has been working to tidy up the CBD and ensure that informal traders operate only in designated zones. City officials visited the CBD today to encourage informal traders to register. Acting Mayor Eunice Mngina has called on informal traders to utilize this opportunity.
We're worried about the turnout of those informal traders. They are not coming as we expect them to. And there's a list that we're given from the court of about 525 informal traders that registered on their own list to be verified. But up to so far, we don't have a sizable number to get them registered.
The Health Department in the Eastern Cape has reiterated its stance against all forms of corruption within its department. This comes after 5 emergency medical workers from the Jokabi district were flagged for submitting fraudulent matric certificates to secure a job. Department spokesperson Siyanda Manana says the employees were found guilty during an internal disciplinary hearing.
Initially, there were 6 EMS staff. However, one admitted guilt and resigned from the department and was sentenced after appearing in court. A disciplinary hearing was held and all 5 were found guilty. However, they appealed the sentence.
5 suspects linked to a mass shooting in Westbury will remain in custody following a brief appearance before the Johannesburg Magistrates Court today. Last month, 7 teenagers who were gathered at a house in the area were ambushed by another group who fired a hail of bullets at them, claiming 2 lives. The 5 suspects each face 2 counts of murder and 5 of attempted murder. Ntokozo Khumalo has more.
Yesterday, in a bid to find lasting solutions to gang-related crime in the area, the community gathered at a local hall to engage on their plight. Today, after the long wait for the proceedings to begin, the families of the accused all filled the Johannesburg Magistrate Court's public gallery. Younger sister of a suspect says their family is going through a lot of emotional turmoil over the recent turn of events.
Family has been going through a lot of emotional distress because as we don't know what is going on. As for my mother, I know she's going through a lot, and we just hope that this can blow over fast because we do not know what's happening. So our emotions towards it, we're very stressed, and we would just like to get closure, like what's happening.
She adds that she hopes that justice is served no matter the outcome. The matter has been postponed to next week for a formal bail application. Ntokozo Khumalo, Eyewitness News.
And in North Africa, Sudan's paramilitary rapid support forces have agreed to the US and Arab powers' proposal for a humanitarian ceasefire, adding that it's open to talks on a cessation of hostilities. Both the RSF and the Sudanese army have agreed to various ceasefire proposals during their 2.5-year-old war, though none have succeeded. US President Donald Trump's administration has said it was working towards ending fighting in Sudan. The announcement, which the Sudanese army did not immediately respond to, comes less than 2 weeks after the RSF took over the famine-stricken city of Al Fasher, consolidating its control over the vast western region of Darfur. Earlier this week, the army-led Security and Defense Council met but did not give a definite answer to the proposal, though influential leaders and allies within the army have expressed their disapproval. Look at your weather. A cloudy Friday in store for Gauteng tomorrow, with afternoon scattered thunder showers expected. Temperatures will drop to overnight lows between 13 and 15 degrees and peak at highs between 17 and 20. Clear skies for the mother city, along with fresh southeasterly winds at a low of 18 and a high of 34 degrees. The top story in Eyewitness News this hour. The city of Johannesburg says it's concerned that informal traders in the metro appear reluctant to register for trading permits.
EWN Traffic.
On the R21 North, there's still that earlier crash at the ramp from the NGN Highveld 1 stop. And on the N3 South, there's a stationary vehicle. It's in the centre lane at Van Buren Road, so please be on the lookout for that. The earlier accident on the N3 North at Van Buren, that's been cleared, but there is still heavy delays. In Cape Town, there's structures alight in Kensington on Voortrekker Road between 18th Avenue and Jakes Gerwel Drive. A contraflow system is still in place, so you can expect delays. And on F.W. Clark Boulevard incoming, there's a bus broken down in the left lane at Lower Church. More Eyewitness News traffic at 7 p.m.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
Beyond every boardroom is a story waiting to be written. A story of a business and its potential, of a community that thrives, a hospital that serves, and energy that powers millions of dreams. It's a story that only gets better with a partner that has the expertise and solutions to make it a reality. At ABSA CIB, we are invested in your story, and we invite you to write it with us, because your story matters. ABSA, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
Lock into roaring rugby action this season with Hollywood Bets. Bet 50 Rand or more on any Vodacom United Rugby Championship fixture, and you could win a share of 300,000 Rand in cash, betting vouchers, or prizes. This includes Smeg bar fridges, macro vouchers, a Sharks captain run, or a player's circle experience. Only the toughest team will prevail. Bet now and let the rugby rumble begin.
T's and C's apply. Hollywood Sportsbook is a licensed betting operator. No persons under the age of 18 years are permitted to gamble. Winners know when to stop. South African Responsible Gambling Foundation toll-free counselling line 0800 006 008 or WhatsApp help to 076 675 0710.
Let me get this right, Ron. You're a plumber by day and Pretoria's smoothest wedding DJ by night.
Yeah, it started out as a passion and now I've got bookings until December. And a smoke machine that needs its own seatbelt.
And you sold your car to buy a van through We Buy Cars.
Bro, it was music to my ears. Zero admin, no long queues. They pulled in, checked it out, and before I knew it, I had cash in the bank.
Now that's a banger. We Buy Cars. Geared for your passion, geared for you.
EWN Sport.
Stella Keller, good evening. Lots of crickets in the way at the moment.
Absolutely, Stephen. And it's Nandre Berger who took a career best 4 for 46 as South Africa restricted Pakistan to 269 for 9 in the second ODI. In response, the Proteas are at the crease on 217 for the loss of 1, needing just 53 more runs from 18.5 overs for victory. Batting is Tony De Zorzi on 65 alongside Quinton de Kock, who's just scored his century. Over to rugby, where it'll be a special occasion for Siya Kolisi and Rassie Erasmus when the Springboks clash with France in their second game of the outgoing tour on Saturday. The captain will become the 9th Springbok centurion, while Erasmus takes charge of his 50th test as head coach.
We're very proud of Sia. We're proud of being part of him reaching that milestone. But there's a lot of other guys that's close to milestones who's on 47 caps, 48 caps, 93 caps, 97 caps. I think there's a lot of them that's going to come now. But at the end of the day, like Sia handled it and like Eben handled it, when those big milestones come, if you make those things bigger than the match, then you normally tend to come second in that match. So his humbleness is something that just stands out for me always.
Hugo Bruch says he's given up on having a meeting with all the PSL coaches after years of trying to convince them to work with him to benefit Bafana Bafana. The national team returned to action against Zambia on the 15th of November in an international friendly in Gqeberha. Ahead of it, Bruch says only 3 teams have been open to working with him.
I didn't try to have the coaches anymore after 4 attempts, and every time they said no, no, no. But with those guys, Pirates phoned me, also with Rivera. They said, look, do you want to meet a coach? I said, yes. Same thing happened with Sundowns. I met now Cardoso, I met the guy who is now in Arrows, and the coach who was before him. So I met them. And this is what it has to be. We don't have to be rivals. We are colleagues.
Bruch has also ruled out a Bafana return for Thembinkosi Lodge, who's been one of Wydad Casablanca's standout performers since the start of the season. He's netted 4 goals in 8 games to lead the side to the top of the Batola Pro 1 League.
This is not the future. I'm very sorry. This is not the future. And if I shouldn't have other opportunities, okay, maybe I should take him. It happened also 4 years ago with Temba. I wanted to look for opportunities, but I didn't find them, and I had to come back and I had to take Temba, and it was a very good decision that I took him, because you see what happens with the team then. Again, for Lodge, for the moment, I don't see, even he has good performances in Morocco, I don't see any reason why I should take him with the team.
And FIFA have announced a new annual award called the FIFA Peace Prize, which will be given to its first winner during the 2026 World Cup finals draw next month. Football World's world governing body says the award was created to reward individuals who have taken exceptional and extraordinary actions for peace. Tholakile Mganga, Eyewitness News Sport.
Every day I'm hustling. It's our reality as business owners.
And it's good to know that there's someone out there who takes care of the business that makes the business. Gotta love My Way Business Insurance. Saving big on premiums with 24/7 emergency services, plus My Business Assist with marketing, legal, and labor advice services.
Visit myway.co.za or dial 0860 64 64 64 and get a quote today. My Way is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP. T's, C's and standard rates apply. My Way. Live your way.
Live extra with Checkers, SA's #1 in value supermarket. Save big on deals like Sunshine D 40% light or 60% original fat spread, 500 grams, any two for 79 Rand. Baby Soft 2-ply toilet rolls, 9 per pack, and Domestos Power Foam, 450 mils, both for 99 Rand. And Nescafe Gold caffeinated instant coffee, 200 grams, any for 149.99. Valid until Sunday at Checkers, Checkers Hyper, or shop on 6060.
Small businesses are anything but small. They're the backbone of our communities, the dreamers, the doers, the ones who keep Mzansi moving forward. That's why 702 and Capitec Business Banking are putting them in the spotlight. Every Thursday between 6 and 8 p.m. catch Small Business Focus with Capitec, where we showcase the hustle, heart, and the secrets to thriving in today's economy. Your vision matters, and with Capitec, you're never building it alone. Small Business Focus with Capitec, the business bank for everyone. Thursdays between 6 and 8 p.m. on 702. Capitec Bank is an authorized FSP 46669.
WhatsApp Stephen
on 072
702
1702.
Well, a couple of notes coming through about the Please Call Me issue, but others coming through about what's going to be, I suspect, the big policy issue of the next couple of weeks. How we should really fund electricity for smelters.
Stephen John here from Randburg. I really believe that the subsidizing of electricity prices for smelters should come out of government coffers, because they are essentially subsidizing jobs, which boost the economy. So it shouldn't come out of consumers' pockets.
All right, John in Randburg, thanks very much indeed. The Eskom CEO, Dan Marakane, he gave an interview to Business Live. He says the cost of preference electricity prices for chrome smelters would have to be borne by ordinary customers. He means you and I. And that a preferential pricing policy should be explicit about who it's protecting. Jose Molesh is an expert on electricity and finance. Jose, good evening. I mean, it does seem to be an obvious and important point Marakane is making, and he's right to make it. If we want smelters, you and I have to pay for them.
Correct. It's an important point, especially because of where we are right now. We are in the process of reviewing our electricity pricing policy. And what he's saying basically is not to say that the smelters should not be looked at, but he's saying there must be a methodology to doing that. The impact on the economy, the impact on local jobs and all of that. What's the impact on that? Have we done a cost-benefit analysis to be able to determine which smelters, under what circumstances? So basically putting the rules in terms of how we do that and what the benefit is.
Isn't it also the case that smelters are generally owned by private companies? So wouldn't you and I be subsidizing a private company?
Yes, actually, it happens in South Africa, in some countries globally, that there are energy-intensive users that are subsidized. But that there's always a consideration in terms of what is the justification for doing that, what is the contribution to the economy, and how the retention of industrial capacity versus just exporting. So that is what is important. Say economically, if we're going to be able to do that, what is the impact? If there is none, then why are we really subsidizing, as you correctly point out, private entities? That is the question.
And I mean, this really then gets to another point. If you're going to do this, it has to be all thought out very carefully so you know what the end point is. You can't just say to everybody, you have to subsidize private companies. You have to be able to show. And I think this is where Dan Marakane's other point is important. You need to be explicit about what you're actually doing.
I fully agree with that. You really have to be explicit because this is a historical case, and from time to time, every economy needs to review what they are doing, whether it's still relevant, and what are the levers they are trying to pull. Because at some point in South Africa, we had excess electricity, and we could have lower prices in terms of electricity, and it made sense from our economy to be able to retain these big smelters, to be able to sell that power to them. The context has changed, and therefore the considerations must change.
We're already in a position where many ordinary people tell us they can't actually pay for electricity. And that's actually what's going to really drive the anger here. I mean, the only other way that I could think of to doing it is to have a sort of direct government subsidy to these smelters. But in the end, the consequences for you and I are probably pretty similar.
They are very similar. Government is us. So there's no separate government up there. If they take from the coffers where they are supposed to be doing something else with the revenue collections from us and companies, then there's still going to be a net impact on consumers. So it's really just running away from the problem. We have to define, as Dan correctly points out, the cost benefit, the reason why government is doing it, and how it should be done.
Jose Moleshe, thanks very much indeed, the energy expert. Your thoughts, 072-702-1702.
702. Stephen is on the Money Show.
6 to 8 p.m.
Time to give you an update on the SA Future Trust Summit, and the big prize for a small business is $1 million. There's a big pitch they have to go through, and in fact, our host Ray White is there. Ray, good evening. 3 people, it came down to 3 sort of finalists who had pitched. In the end, there could only be one winner.
That's right, Stephen. That's exactly what happened. I mean, there was fierce competition. There were 10 to start with. That then went down to 3 left. There were 2, Pay Gas, where they went up and said, we got a great product distributing clean cooking fuel and stuff like that. Sonke, they said that automated refill stations, they were good. But the winner of the pitch in 2025 getting $1 million. Now, it's not a cash prize. What it is, it's investment. So the Oppenheimer family, SAFT, South Africa Future Trust, will now work with her on due diligence and stuff like that, just to make sure that the investment works in the right direction, but it is for her business. Now, Meg Fora is the winner of the big pitch for 2025. Stephen, I spoke to Meg just after winning, and yes, I did ask that really obvious question. How are you feeling? This is what she said. Let's take a listen.
Completely overwhelmed, and I'm not really thinking about what it's going to mean for the future. I'm just thinking about how the heck did I get here against those other 9 incredible companies. I think it is important to know that it is an investment, which means we're going to go through a very rigorous due diligence process now, and knowing the Oppenheimers, they will look at our business carefully. I'm not worried. We are highly defendable, and we've got the right mission. But what are we going to do longer term? I think, for me, it's all about rolling out parenting support across every demographic.
And Ray, the app is called Parent Sense. What exactly is it?
Well, that's exactly it. You're probably wondering, okay, what did she win for? What was so dynamic? Well, yes, it's called Parent Sense. Now, Stephen, you know this. You're a dad, and you want her little bubbers as well. I was petrified when I was a father. I didn't know what to do. So Parent Sense says exactly that. She's got a one-stop shop for moms and dads who have just become parents. It covers everything. Quote, it's called the all-in-one app that takes the guesswork out of parenting. It tracks your baby, etc., regarding the baby's health, sleep, playtime, bottle time, all the rest of it. So I asked her, I said to her, what is it actually about? And she had this to say.
So we deliver parenting support on mobile applications, WhatsApp and chatbots. It is all curated by myself, Meg Fora. I'm obviously an occupational therapist, the author of 8 parenting books. So for me, this was a natural extension of the content that I've created over many years. And I've got a team of about 50 incredible experts behind me, from pediatricians to gynecologists, who support me to deliver absolutely really gold standard curated information to parents. The problem with the world at the moment is there's a lot of noise out there, particularly on social media, and parents don't know where to turn, and we're that solution. No, we're absolutely ready to scale. That's the beauty of a product like this. It's highly scalable as a digital product. We've built a very firm foundation, so the actual tech product itself is very, very robust. We've got an incredible tech team of all female developers, barring one. So we've got an incredible team who develop our product, and it is ready to go global. We have already got a deal underway in the UAE, and in fact a second very large deal in the UAE, which if it comes over the line will deliver some high touch care as well, so where we can really touch people as their babies are discharged from neonatal ICUs. We've also got a government globally who's looking at our product at the moment, so yeah, we're ready for scale.
Meg Fora there, the winner, this year's winner of the SA Future Trust $1 million big pitch. Ray White for that live report. Really do appreciate it. Thank you very much on The Money Show. 10 minutes to 7.
At Auto & General, we understand your business is built on more than just vehicles. It's your stock, tools and equipment, and the premises where you work. Auto & General Business Insurance is designed for businesses like yours, protecting your assets against fire, theft, storms, and other unexpected events. To protect your livelihood, visit autogen.co.za and get an obligation-free business insurance quote. Auto & General, never not there. Auto & General is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
In a world where a lot can change in 6 years, you can rest assured knowing that Hino's 6-year drivetrain warranty won't. All Hino trucks now come standard with a 6-year drivetrain warranty, protecting your investment all the way from pistons to gears. Built to keep your business moving, supporting uptime, growth and daily operations, because although a lot can change in 6 years, their warranty promise won't. T's and C's apply. Hino, all the way.
Are you looking for the best spectacle and sunglass deal? With Specsavers buy one, get one offer, you get great value for money. Get a free pair of branded single vision prescription sunglasses up to 3,300 Rand. When you purchase a comprehensive eye examination and spectacle frames with lenses on your first pair. The best part? Choose from top brands like Police, Hugo, Under Armour, Tommy Hilfiger, Red Bull Specs and more. Affordable eye care? Specsavers. T's and C's apply.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by Absa CIB, advancing Red Rocket's ambitions with Discovery Green as the off-taker to power Africa's future through affordable, renewable energy.
The Money Show, Tech Thursday.
8 minutes now to 7 the time. Well, I don't know how much time every day you spend on TikTok. I've managed to not get addicted to that, but I know plenty of people who are, and I know that addiction is out there, so I treat TikTok very carefully. Let me just put it like that. But in the States, in the US, there's been this huge political fight about its ownership, and it now seems that China and the US, do I call it Beijing and Washington, do I call it Xi and Trump, I don't even know what I call it with the US anymore, have reached some kind of deal, and there will be some American ownership. Siphumelele Zondi, good evening. Man, oh man, did TikTok not want to be in this place where really they're the tug of war between these two economic superpowers? What did they agree in the end?
Hello, Stephen, and it's actually not really clear what the actual agreement, but it seems like what they could be agreeing on is over 60% of ownership of TikTok, specifically in America, not worldwide, but TikTok in America, which means it might have to be registered in the United States of America. 60% will be owned in America. There are going to be 7 American board members for TikTok America, and 6 of the 7 will be American, and 1 will be from ByteDance, which is the mother company out in China.
What I've never got is why this matters so much. I mean, I get the sort of American claim, if I can oversimplify it, is that, no, they're changing the way we think with algorithms, or they're getting information on us. I mean, this is what American social media does. I mean, this is what Facebook does all the time.
And that is actually true, Stephen. But when you also think about it, is that it's 149 million users of TikTok in America alone. So if you think about South Africa's population, 60 million, and this is well over 2 times South Africa's population. So that's what it is, which means it's a lot of money, because in America there's also TikTok Shop where people are buying and selling things. It's a business as well. So it's more than just a video sharing app, especially in the United States of America. Whereas in South Africa, we know it as a video sharing app, and people are not quite making money directly from the platform here. So it's because of that. And I suppose as well, there is that influence that who owns the data that those 149 million users of TikTok in America are uploading constantly on the platform, which is Chinese owned.
Well, I mean, if it wasn't Chinese owned, maybe there'll be a different mayor of New York, Siphumelele. Do we know what this does for people who use TikTok, people who create content for it outside of the United States? Does this impact of any deal on them?
So it's said that it's not going to impact on them. So for people even here in South Africa, it's going to be business as usual, because TikTok outside the United States of America is going to operate differently from TikTok in the United States of America. And also what they've said as part of this deal is that issue of algorithm, because they want the algorithm to be controlled in America by those over 60% shareholders that they're going to have in America. Which means then they can control some of, because they, as you mentioned, that because of the content coming from anywhere in the world, it's been quite difficult to control what people have had access to. And it's been criticized in all sorts of political issues in America to say, well, get a grip on it so people think a particular way.
TikTok is owned by China, essentially. It's Chinese owned, let me put it like that. Is it actually available in China?
It's not. So it's owned by, so it's based on Chinese social media platforms. And that's why, because it already tested it on the massive Chinese population that they have over there. So they basically took the algorithm or the ideas from there, and then they transported that to the rest of the world. But Chinese people don't have access to the TikTok that we see outside China. In fact, they probably don't even know it exists.
Sure. There's so much hypocrisy in this kind of industry. So you've got the United States making demands of TikTok and bullying their way through. You've got people saying, no, but the algorithms could impact us. But that's exactly what Facebook does. And in fact, I don't know if you would have seen it yet, Siphumelele. Reuters had a big story today that Meta projected in the beginning of 2024, it would earn 10% of its revenue from fraudulent ads. So these aren't fake ads. These are scams. In other words, once you pay the money, you never get it back. It's that kind of issue. That was $16 billion. And they went ahead anyway and took money from these things. And now, the United States has got Facebook doing that. And they have the nerve to lecture ByteDance.
Totally, and that's the thing. Is in this world as well. It's also basically who owns the information, who controls information flow, and who's making money. Because when America, because there are also rumors that probably one of Donald Trump's sons, Barron, might be one of the 7 board members when the deal eventually goes through. Because Trump has already signed an executive order on this and has given them 120 days that it goes through. So yes, it's who owns the information flow, who makes money from these platforms. Because if you have millions and millions of people on a platform, then there's a lot of money to be made. And as you say, whether it's advertising that is done correctly, advertising that is fake, advertising that is done fraudulently as well, someone is going to make the money, but it's where the money is sitting. And America has had an issue here that it's sort of like they've been overtaken in this high-tech information flow that we live in, and it seems like it's companies from elsewhere, not just in with communication tech, but also other forms of technology, and they sort of like want to control it and bring it over to the United States of America, even though it's created elsewhere.
Siphumelele Zondi, thanks very much indeed, our tech expert. I really do appreciate it. I have to just say, the thing about Meta that really staggers me is that these adverts were not just overselling. It's not like they were promising you the world and all you got was, a shabby piece of clothing or something like that. They were proper scams. I mean, proper scams. And they were making money off them, and they knew they were going to do it. And I know Meta will say, well, we have software to do this and do that. But it is astonishing. It is just astonishing, the impact. I mean, I sometimes wonder what the final sort of historical verdict on Meta will be. And of course, none of us will care at the time because we'll be in a world that's sort of been created by Meta. Stop reading dark science fiction, Stephen. Plenty to come in the next little while. We will be talking about top billing, which seems to be coming back. Why it was cancelled, I never really understood. We will also talk about Black Friday. It's not quite there yet, but it's coming. And don't forget Investment School tonight as well. You're with The Money Show, 7 o'clock.
This is EWN.
Good evening, I'm Maki Mulapo. The head of the Investigating Directorate Against Corruption, Andrea Johnson, has confirmed that they are investigating politicians in connection with the 360 million rand tender awarded to one of Vusmusi Ket Matlala's companies. But she says she can't name the politicians pending the investigation. Johnson says the tender for medical services awarded to Matlala by the police before its cancellation is the only matter involving the murder accused that they're looking into. Johnson is giving evidence before Parliament's ad hoc committee investigating corruption today on matters related to the IDAC and the political killings task team. Babala Ndenza has more.
Andrea Johnson testified that the IDAC is investigating several police supply chain management officials linked to Vusumuzi Ket Matlala's 360 million rand healthcare contract with the police. The contract was cancelled in December last year. Johnson says they've also downloaded data from Matlala's 2 cell phones that was seized by the political killings task team.
The only matter that IDAC currently is looking at with regards to Mr. Matlala relates to the 360 million rand tender.
EFF leader Julius Malema also asked her if any politicians are being investigated.
You were able to say police officers, high-ranking police officers. Are there politicians that you are looking at without mentioning names?
That is correct, Honourable Member.
Johnson says while Matlala is implicated in the Tembisa Hospital tender corruption, this matter is being handled by the Hawks. Babala Ndenza, Eyewitness News, Parliament.
President Cyril Ramaphosa says he's open to augmenting the panel that will select candidates to become the next head of the National Prosecuting Authority. He appointed a panel to publicly interview candidates last month. But today, the DA's Glenis Breitenbach again raised concerns during a question and answer session in the National Assembly about what she views as its lack of criminal prosecutorial experience. Lindsay Dentlinger has more.
President Ramaphosa believes the panel, which comprises representatives from the executive, Chapter 9 institutions and legal bodies, have the requisite skills and experience to nominate suitable candidates for appointment.
This process is transparent and helps to build public confidence in the appointment of a person in this critical office.
But the DA is not happy. Former prosecutor turned MP Glenis Breitenbach argues the panel lacks someone who understands the ethos and culture of the NPA. Ramaphosa says it's not too late to add more members.
I'm always open to good ideas. And if there are people who have good and superior knowledge in criminal prosecutions, I'm willing to consider them.
Ramaphosa says he's instructed the Justice Minister to consider how a more transparent selection process for this position can be codified in law. Lindsay Dentlinger, Eyewitness News, Parliament.
Controversial lobby group Operation Dudula insists it will continue checking the nationalities of patients before they access public healthcare facilities. This follows a recent Gauteng High Court ruling prohibiting the group from blocking access to hospitals and clinics to individuals they suspect of being undocumented foreign nationals. The court found the organization has no legal authority to require anyone to show identification before receiving public healthcare. Although Operation Dudula leader Zandile Dabula says the plan to appeal the ruling, she maintains that the group does not believe their actions are illegal.
Our way forward too is that we're going to continue with our operations. That's the reason why we're going to appeal, because when we appeal, it's going to set aside the judgment and we continue until the next set down. Because I don't think South Africans are ready for this, and if they are ready for this, they must tell us. But if they're not, then they must definitely join the struggle, because the hype out there is that people are tired of the illegality from foreigners.
The Randburg Magistrates Court says the former bodyguards of Deputy President Paul Mashatile still have to answer to the matter regarding their alleged assault case. Today, the 8 men attached to the SAPS's VIP Presidential Protection Unit appeared before the Randburg Magistrates Court, where they failed to get charges against them dropped. The officers are accused of assaulting civilians on the side of the Johannesburg N1 highway in July 2023. The court says they all still need to answer to the assault and causing malicious damage to property charges. Magistrate Abdul Khan says the incident was captured on video.
The video evidence submitted as evidence corroborates the state's version that the accused had acted in common purpose, as it was observed during his testimony that when he was showed the video, that the victims were assaulted by 6 males when he was shown the video. The accused admitted that they were present. The court is satisfied that all 8 accused had acted in common purpose in the assault.
And on your roads, Gauteng Emergency Services personnel are cautioning residents about flash floods, particularly in low-lying areas, as the province grapples with heavy downpours. This as parts of Ekurhuleni contend with flooding in some areas, along with reports of roads and homes being flooded in parts of Johannesburg as well. The Weather Service has also sent out an alert for thunderstorms in the province. Ekurhuleni EMS spokesperson William Ntladi.
So what's happening currently is we have sent out firefighters to those areas which are known to be flooding areas, but so far everything is going very well.
Joburg EMS's Robert Malaudzi has urged motorists to exercise extreme caution as they drive through the city.
Our motorists are urged to exercise caution while driving, extend the safe following distance, and try and avoid crossing flooded roads and low-lying bridges.
Gold's trading at $3,984.53 an ounce. The rand's at 17.40 to the dollar, at 22.80 to the pound, at 20.07 to the euro. Brent crude oil's at $63.27 a barrel.
On the N3 South, there's a stationary vehicle in the centre lane at Van Buren Road. And on the N1 South, there's a stationary truck in the centre lane after Proefplaas. And in Cape Town, there's still structures alight in Kensington on Voortrekker Road between 18th Avenue and Jakes Gerwel Drive. A contraflow system is in place. And on F. de Klerk Boulevard incoming, there's a bus broken down in the left lane at Lower Church.
A look at your weather. Cloudy skies in store for Gauteng tomorrow, with afternoon scattered thunder showers expected. Joburg will drop to overnight lows of 13 degrees and peak at highs of 18. Pretoria is at 15 and 20. Vereeniging also dropping to lows of 13, reaching highs of 17 degrees. Clear skies for the mother city, along with fresh southerly winds tomorrow at a low of 18 and a high of 34 degrees. The top story in Eyewitness News this hour. The head of the Investigating Directorate Against Corruption, Andrea Johnson, has confirmed that they're investigating politicians in connection with the 360 million rand tender awarded to one of Vusimuzi Matlala's companies.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
And now, The Money Show
with Stephen Grootes on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by Absa CIB, advancing Red Rocket's ambitions with Discovery Green as the off-taker to power Africa's future through affordable, renewable energy. Good evening. Plenty to come in the next little while. It's 8 minutes now after 7. We will be speaking to the SABC. Tembo Gwajela is their Group Executive for Corporate Affairs and Marketing about the Top Billing Reunion Special and how it's working and the new episodes that are coming. Top Billing is just one of those iconic pieces of South African TV. We're back in small business focus tonight. Lonqedo and Twentwe is back. We're talking about Black Friday and kind of hoping that I don't hear any Christmas songs in the stores. Does anyone go to a store for Christmas sales anymore? I just don't have to hear them. I mean, that's one of the joys of online shopping is you don't have to hear that kind of Christmas music while you do it. And then don't forget investment school. Should you invest in private companies or should you stay with listed companies, and what the changes are that we're seeing? Looking forward to that conversation from 7:30. Good evening.
The Money Show
with Stephen Grootes, live on 92.7 and 106 FM, streaming on the Prime Media Plus app
and DSTV channel 856.
So last week, and you may know this already, last week I had to go and get a driver's license card, a new driver's license card. Off I went to where everyone told me to go, which was Waterfall in Midrand. The service was excellent. I was very pleased. Until, on News 24, I read this week, today in fact, that they are trialing a digital driver's license that I would keep on my phone. It took them 3 months to do it. I mean, this is what happens when you get, people who are good with that stuff in a room together and leave them to it. Here's what I don't get. There seems to be a big fight at the moment about whether we should have to get a new driver's license card every 5 years or if it should be longer than that. For some reason, 8 years seems to be the proposal, and I cannot for the life of me understand why 8 years rather than 10. My passport's 10, my ID, it's green, goes forever. Why on earth should it be 8 years for a driver's license card? So I am one of those. Ma'am, Minister Barbara Creasy, if I may, let's just move to digital as quickly as possible, please. We really don't need anything else. Let's just roll it out and get on with it. As it is, I am sure on a daily basis there are fights with people where the motorist says, I don't have my driver's license card on me. Here is a picture of it. And the cop says, well, I need to see the driver's license. And what's the difference between the two? I can't really imagine. It took 3 months. And we have this machine that's, 100 years old, still clanking them out somewhere. And that nonsense where people went to the wrong country and looked at the wrong machine. Come on, let's just go electronic. We really should not have to wait any longer. 10 after 7.
7:02.
7:02.
Stephen is on The Money Show.
6 to 8 p.m.
Spending It is brought to you by the Glenlivet Live Original. True originals don't drink and drive, not for sale to persons under the age of 18. Drink responsibly. Well, when you think of television productions that are South African, right at the top of the list has to be Top Billing, the SABC's Top Billing. It sets a sort of agenda, and I made the joke earlier that, if your wedding wasn't on Top Billing, well then it didn't really work out for you, did it? And it did have that kind of cachet, I suppose, that kind of reputation. Well, now it's coming back. Temba Gwajela is the Group Executive for Corporate Affairs and Marketing at the SABC. Temba, good evening. You're putting together a reunion show first. What are you looking at doing?
A very good evening to you, Stephen, and to the listeners on 702. We're quite excited about the return of Top Billing, and I think the reunion is the perfect way to bring it back, right, and to segue into what we've got in store for 2026. So we partnered with the guys at Corona to bring back, that reunion episode, which will be live on the 27th at 7 o'clock on S3.
What are we going to see? We're going to see some of the presenters that we know and love from that time. We're going to see if they've changed as much as we have, Tim.
I'd hate for them to think that we say they've changed much. I think they look fabulous. We did have an event, earlier this week in Cape Town where we actually, talked about that, and we had the presenters in-house, the likes of Basetsana, the likes of Fezile, Kize was also Mr. Supranational. We've got the likes of Jonathan Boynton Lee and Ryle Dumoni. So we are definitely bringing back, the familiar faces, definitely for the reunion, and also throwing back, in terms of creating the excitement around what people can look forward to in 2026. I think South Africans have really missed Top Billing, as you've just said.
And one of the things that Top Billing did was it launched a lot of careers. People had their first TV experience there. They became household names as a result. Are you going to sort of be doing that as well, looking for new talent, giving it an airing, giving people a chance?
Absolutely. It wouldn't be Top Billing if it didn't do that, right? I think there's a working recipe in how Top Billing has been, in terms of every household that has really got glued onto that. And we have to keep what's working in that format. Yes, I acknowledge, and I think we acknowledge the fact that the world has shifted in the last 6 years since the last episode. So there will be a bit of newness coming in. But I think there's a lot of key ingredients that really work in the format that have to stay. So, and one of those is definitely how we create superstars and make, new high achievers and talent, as you rightly put.
There's a lot more competition for eyeballs now, Temba. I don't need to tell you that, you know that. And one of the things that really does seem to work in our country and in countries around the world is local content. In other words, talking about South Africans' lives to South African people, right? And we see that with what other streaming services are doing in South Africa and your competitors and all the rest. Where I'm really going with this, though, is that the genius, why people watch Top Billing was that it was people they know. It was someone they might see in a parking lot, or it was someone who was in touching distance of their own lives. They're on TV having the wedding that got onto Top Billing.
Absolutely. In fact, we were actually discussing this at the dinner the other day. The fact that what Top Billing afforded people from all walks of life in South Africa was that opportunity to dream, to imagine their lives beyond their current circumstances, and to see that through obviously the experiences of others, and really think that I can be that rugby player, or that famous person on TV that lives this beautiful, glamorous life, but doing that ever so successfully within the shores of South Africa, because we've got so much beauty to showcase in our country. And I think since the departure of Top Billing 6 years ago, I think people have really missed seeing and appreciating how much beauty there is in South Africa.
What made you decide as S3, that's the name of the channel, that this was the right moment to bring it back?
Yeah, look, we have to be a broadcaster that listens to the public by virtue of being a public broadcaster. I think there's been an outcry really for the longest of time for Top Billing to come back. We've got people on TikTok, creating TikTok content using the Top Billing format and drawing inspiration from that. And a lot of South Africans have been telling us it needs to come back. I think it's one of those things that we've listened and we've said, okay, so let's make it happen. And I think in it coming back, we really just bring back that inspiration and showcasing and playing that role in showcasing the best of fashion, the best of, destinations within South Africa, the best of architecture, the best of beauty. All of that, there hasn't been something that has quite captured that as well as Top Billing did. And I think we're closing a gap that really exists, and the market really wants to see that.
It's an important moment for the channel too, isn't it? It's an important piece of merchandise, but it'll hopefully bring viewers, and that's what you need.
Absolutely. I think there's no denying the fact that, content on various channels, has been challenged largely. And Top Billing is one of those pieces that are able to bring a variety of audiences. I was saying to Basatana at the dinner, and we said, much as people may look at a platform like Top Billing and think it's so glamorous and so and it sells luxury, you've got people who get inspired by that and change their entire way of being because they actually see themselves being in that space. And I think South Africa does need something to believe in. Lord knows we've got a lot of challenges as a nation, but just living through those moments and having a sense of hope because you think there's something better that you can do. And I think that's exactly the kind of show. And for the channel then to bring that definitely resonance with audiences, bringing back some of the audiences to S3 that perhaps have been lost over the last 6 years.
Temba, good to talk. Thanks so much. Kwemba Gwejela is the Group Executive for Corporate Affairs and Marketing at the SABC. You pour a glass of the Glenlivet and time slows, a hint of spice, fruit and oak warmth. Now imagine that same spirit of craftsmanship with the elegance of the Mercedes-Benz AMG. When you buy Glenlivet 12 to 25-year-old, you could win a brand new Mercedes-Benz AMG. Visit theglenlivet.com or any participating store for a chance to win. Made to follow no one. The Glenlivet. Live original. True originals don't drink and drive. Not for sale to persons under the age of 18. Drink responsibly. T's and C's apply.
Beyond every boardroom is a story waiting to be written. A story of a business and its potential, of a community that thrives, a hospital that serves, and energy that powers millions of dreams. It's a story that only gets better with a partner that has the expertise and solutions to make it a reality. At ABSA CIB, we are invested in your story, and we invite you to write it with us, because your story matters. ABSA, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
As the world's leaders meet for the G20 summit in Johannesburg, the eyes of the world will be upon us. Not just to South Africa, but Africa. It's the very first time that this summit has been held on our continent. What the world will see is a country building infrastructure that improves the lives of its people and lives up to the summit's themes of solidarity, equality, and sustainability. SANRAL's investment and projects ensure that we undertake this journey together with our neighbors. The N4 Maputo Corridor project stimulates trade to Maputo in Mozambique. The upgrade extends along the N4 to the Trans-Kalahari Corridor, growing trade for Botswana. The N7 from the Cape to Namibia is growing cross-border commerce, and the N1 project facilitates trade with Zimbabwe. The world will see an Africa that's building a better continent through roads. SANRAL, an agency of the Department of Transport.
Calling all wedding planners and venues, restaurants, conference centers, and hotels. Do you need tables and chairs? Home in One has it all. Do you need cutlery, crockery, table linen, and restaurant equipment? Home in One has it all. Do you need tents, gazebos, or umbrellas? Home in One has it all. Affordable prices, the latest trends, with 2 branches in Pretoria and Johannesburg. Shop online at homein1.co.za. Because we're your number one choice. Home in One has it all.
The Money Show, Small Business Focus.
Small Business Focus is brought to you by Capitec. Start up or scale up with Capitec, the business bank for everyone. Well, it feels like a long way away, and you probably haven't heard any Christmas music yet, but it's coming. I can warn you that it's coming. Lonqedo Mtwentwe is the Managing Director at Vantage Advisory. Lonqedo, good evening. Good to see you in our studio. Thanks so much for coming through. I really appreciate it.
Good evening. Good evening, Stephen. Great to be here. Good to see you. Yeah.
In the past, I suppose bigger chains have often been able to dominate during this time. They've got bigger advertising budgets. They've got a bigger kind of presence in a shopping mall. You're suggesting that smaller firms actually have a lot of advantages now.
Look, Black Friday is a big business, right? And I was actually reading a report from my fellow columnist, Arthur Goldstack. So last year, look, the retail sales were close to over 88 billion, right? And this year, we're expecting that to surpass to over 100 billion, right, when it comes to retail sales. But what we're picking up now, because of social media, right, and technology that is actually starting to kick in, now the smaller players are starting as well to have their share on the pie, right? Because what has been happening, SMEs have built very good storytelling, have built very good connections with the consumers, right? And also as well in the township, we're starting to see some bit of technology innovations that are actually happening where now consumers as well, businesses, SMEs are starting to compete with big businesses. And in my article, I made reference as well of, some of the technologies that we've picked up, for instance, of SmartFill and Skubu, where basically what they've done, they've plugged in some of the refill stations in spaza shops, right? Where instead of buying certain things in huge bulks, like maize meal or sugar in huge bulks, now you've got these refill stations where you can buy all of these things at smaller quantities. So if you've got 50 rands, you can actually get a very good meal. So all of that now is starting to really push a consumer to say, look, do I really have to wait as well, maybe, or to go to the big players to get all of this if I can get all of these things within my spaza shops within smaller quantities, very good value as well. So all of that now is starting to say, look, the big players traditionally, yes, have made huge money, but we're starting to see SMEs to really come in through, the campaigns that they usually run as well on TikTok. That's quite big when you run your big campaigns,
I mean, in a way, what this technology is doing is that it's helping you to compete. It's making things slightly more democratic. In fact, The Economist had a big piece saying AI will be the end of what they call the rip-off economy. In other words, if you've got a big mechanic, a big firm that's a mechanic, and they charge you X, you'll be able to find if there's a cheaper deal around the corner from a smaller mechanic. That's what they're talking about.
No, absolutely. Stephen, I work with SMEs on day-to-day basis. Right? One of my clients, for instance, had so many stores across Gauteng. She sells beauty products, Gauteng and KZN. So what she did, she picked up to say, listen, most of my sales now are no longer on the physical stores, mainly are online, right? So what she did, she closed all of those physical stores that were basically really heavy in terms of her overheads, now focusing mainly on online. Because traditional, what we picked up was that most people thought that, let me put it this way, access to smartphones has made it easier for people now to shop, right? And therefore, even if you're in township, you're able just to basically log in into any platform, you order, your goods will be delivered next to you. So we're starting to see all of that change in a way. It's no longer, as it was before, but you have to think smart in terms of how you also compete as well.
How do you take advantage of this if you're a smaller firm? What do you need to do? And I mean, I'm sure that somewhere there's a kind of touch point with the community.
Yep.
There's a sort of hyper-local campaign that a bigger chain can't do. Yep. Something along those lines?
Yeah. So what we've picked up when I was doing my research was that most of these smaller individual SMEs, especially within the beauty brands, for instance, what they've done, they've built very good storytelling in terms of the journey of building that business, right? The consumers as well are starting to be aware or to be more purpose-driven, to say, look, instead of me just buying an item just online or shipping an item from Asia, right? I know someone that has built this business from scratch. She uses this money to employ locals, right? This money, all of a sudden, it gets recycled. So therefore, when you build a business, or when you try to run these campaigns, that storytelling that resonates with South Africans is what will actually separate you from someone who just to log in right now and just buy an item from Europe or Asia, instead of saying, listen, let me just recycle that money and buy from someone that I know is adding value to this economy. Because we keep saying that our economy is not growing, right? And most consumers, and usually what they do, we've picked up that to say, look, instead of now just import, how do we create value in terms of creating our manufacturing capacity, supporting some of the smaller guys that are coming up? So therefore, that's where we're at in South Africa.
I mean, keeping our money in our economy is becoming an important thing. Whenever you buy something from Shein and Temu, the money goes out.
Yeah.
If you live in a township area and you go to the shopping mall, the money goes out of the township area and into the mall. And is that going to start to be, I think, maybe a bit more of a selling point? It used to be buy South African, now it's keep it local.
Look, because of the fact that we've seen how other countries have moved, right? We've seen other, for instance, like USA, they're intentional about protecting their local economy. They're very intentional about telling their consumers, very intentional about manufacturing locally. So therefore, the only way that will also help us as South Africans is to really educate our consumers, really educate to say, listen, this is what happens when you spend money. The impact in terms of job creation, we've seen that economies are growing. We are growing below 1%, right? So what do we have to do? So we have to educate our consumers about the impact of their spending. And what we're picking up that most of these consumers as well are starting to be very interested in terms of not only the price, but the purpose behind the product, the purpose behind even that business in terms of where it's going. Yeah.
I would imagine for a lot of the smaller companies, Black Friday is actually a huge opportunity because it gives you a reason for your campaign. It gives you a reason to try and get people into your store and wherever it may be.
So one of my clients said to me, November is a make or break month for them, right? And because of the fact that weekend everyone wants to spend, that month is bigger than even some of the business for December, because December sometimes can peak or sometimes can low. January becomes a slow month. So most of the SMEs right now are really starting to implement and really to strategize in terms of how they're going to make or survive, the Black Friday. So if you're in retail, especially if you're in retail, that month is a big month for you, right? So if you haven't planned for it and you have to start. Actually, now we know that it's close to end of November, but some of the business have already started in terms of how they're going to make money around that time, how they're going to really spin some of the products around that. So it is a big month for SMEs.
Lorncledo, thanks very much indeed for coming in. Really do appreciate it. And such an interesting comment. Lorncledo Mtwentwe is the Managing Director at Vantage Advisory on Small Business Focus on The Money Show this evening.
That's the sound of your business growing. Whether you're starting out or scaling up, turn your passion into profit with Capitec Business Banking. Save up to 50% on fees. Get fast credit approvals, personalized support, and Forex for your business. Open your business banking account on our app. Bank on better with Capitec, the business bank for everyone. Capitec is an authorized FSP, 46669. T's and C's apply.
Coming up,
The Aubrey Masango Show
on 702
and Cape Talk.
Have you ever noticed that piece of sound has such a big smile in it? Coming up, they must know it's you.
Absolutely. Listen, you don't like the Christmas songs at the
No.
malls? Hey.
No. The only good thing about online shopping is that... Really?
Yeah, Boney M. and...
No, man, please, no. No.
Anyway, let me tell you what.
You and I are never going to the same party.
Dr. Ntomfikile Mtshali, MD and CEO of Shout It Out Now, joins us in the first hour in our Psychological Matters feature. And we are seeing a very interesting trend of young people using AI, artificial intelligence, to get, I suppose, advice on mental illness. So it's a very, very interesting conversation there in that first hour. Alpha Ramushwana, Eyewitness News reporter, joins us to tell us about the pressure that the city of Johannesburg is under following their court case with Siri around the registration and verification of vendors in the city. We'll also be joined by Dr. Mgcini Chwaku, MMC for Public Safety, to tell us what their plans are over that time. Dr. Dale McKinley joins us in the third hour of the show on our Africa at a Glance feature. You will have heard President Donald Trump with his tirade about whether or not South Africa should be in the G20 or not. And the question we'll be asking...
Is that what he said? Because it didn't make any sense to me.
Oh, it sounded as though he was speaking about
very
South
messy.
America, and then it sounded like he's speaking about South Africa. It was all quite convoluted, but that is the middle name of Donald Trump. And we're going to be finding out whether indeed that is perhaps
what the
something
J
that's in
stands
the
for.
cards. Whether that is in the cards, whether South Africa might, in fact, at some point not be part of the G20. And then the final hour is an open line, and that's the show tonight, Steve.
Aubrey Masango, thanks very much indeed. Looking forward to it. Just gone 7:30. Marky, good evening. The president's in the cleanup of Joburg.
That's right, Stephen. President Cyril Ramaphosa has defended the cleanup of Johannesburg ahead of the G20 Leaders Summit in just over 2 weeks' time, saying it will set a benchmark for future service delivery. Answering questions in the National Assembly earlier today, Ramaphosa again expressed his displeasure about the performance of local government. But he says rather than question the motivation for fixing up the city's surrounds, political parties should help to prepare for the global visitors. Lindsay Dentlinger has more.
President Cyril Ramaphosa says it's only natural to spruce up ahead of visitors' arrival, and that it was obvious India had done the same when it hosted the G20 in 2023. But the DA's Ryan Smith told the president it's a shame the G20 summit has prompted the beautification of Johannesburg when residents have had to endure poor service delivery for years. Ramaphosa agreed that the City of Gold is in a poor state.
Our local government situation is not pleasing at all. We must all admit that.
He says the G20 cleanup should set the standard for continued service delivery, not only in Johannesburg.
We don't want to fall back and go back to what Johannesburg was. And I do believe that, and we are going to use this as a benchmark.
Following recent visits to Indonesia, Vietnam and Malaysia, Ramaphosa says he's been impressed by how clean their capital cities are. Lindsay Dentlinger, Eyewitness News, Parliament.
Police union SAPU says it's concerned about the arrest of police officers for allegedly committing crimes in Cape Town. At least 20 police officers in the metro have been arrested for various crimes in the past 12 months. Recently, 4 officers attached to the Bellville Rapid Railway office were arrested for allegedly stealing more than 18,000 rand from a shop in Delft. They were nabbed last weekend and appeared in court yesterday to apply for bail. SAPU Acting Provincial Secretary Marie Otto.
SAPU Western Cape continues to call on all law enforcement members to conduct themselves with integrity, professionalism and honesty. Our communities deserve police service they can trust, and building that trust begins with us.
Controversial lobby group Operation Dudula says it will appeal a recent court ruling that prevents it from blocking foreign nationals from accessing public healthcare facilities. Earlier this week, the Gauteng High Court ruled that the organization's practice of demanding identity documents from individuals suspected of being immigrants is unlawful. The group argues that public clinics and hospitals are overwhelmed by the influx of undocumented foreign nationals. Speaking at a media briefing in Johannesburg today, Operation Dudula President Zandile Dabula urged members to comply with the ruling for now.
Now, the judgment sets a dangerous precedent that may weaken law enforcement, erode the state's capacity to manage illegal immigration responsibly and attack the legitimate interests of South African citizens. Now, accordingly, we have instructed our legal team to lodge an appeal on this judgment to protect the interest of South African citizens and the rule of law.
And France is calling on the European Union to sanction online retail giant Shein. This follows uproar over its sale of childlike sex dolls on its French website, as well as the opening of its first brick-and-mortar store in the world in Paris. French ministers say the EU must take action immediately, especially since it's been looking into the Chinese-founded company over risks linked to illegal products. A letter has been sent to the European Commission urging the EU's executive arm to use all its powers to shed light on Shein's actions. A look at your weather. A cloudy Friday in store for Gauteng tomorrow, with afternoon scattered thunder showers expected. Temperatures will drop to overnight lows between 13 and 15 degrees and peak at highs between 17 and 20. Clear skies for Cape Town, along with fresh southeasterly winds at a low of 18 and a high of 34 degrees. The top story in Eyewitness News. President Cyril Ramaphosa has defended the cleanup of Johannesburg ahead of the G20 Leaders Summit in just over 2 weeks' time, saying it will set a benchmark for future service delivery.
The unexamined life is not worth living. Socrates' timeless wisdom reminds us of the power of introspection. At Plus 94 Research, we delve deep into data, uncovering insights that drive meaningful decisions. Our scientific methodologies transform questions into clarity. Don't just operate, understand. Don't just guess, know. Plus 94 Research, the science of decision-making.
The DP World Lions are ready to defend their legacy of champions, but a hungry challenger is in town for the T20 Challenge. This Saturday, November the 8th, the Pride of Jozi faces the newly promoted high-flying Muti Ram Tuskers, the team that swept the Division 2 trophies last season and is eager to prove they belong in the top flight. Witness the ultimate contest at the iconic DP World Wanderers Stadium. The action starts at 2 p.m. Back the pride of Jozi at the DP World Wanderers by purchasing tickets to all 3 T20 matches and stand a chance to win a VIP experience for you and 3 friends at a Joburg Super Kings match. Tickets at Ticket Pro or visit the DP World Lions website.
Standard Bank and 702 have joined forces to bring you China Unlocked.
So Africa-China Trade Solutions composes of both helping our clients with importing from China, but also with exporting to China. And that's what really encompasses our X solution. And how we help our clients access the Chinese market is by doing it through a number of ways. One of those is digitally connecting them to better Chinese buyers. We also organize B2B matchmaking sessions, virtual, some are hybrid. And when we attend some of the flagship shows, such as CIE, we also organize these physical, in-person B2B matchmaking with these Chinese buyers.
Don't miss China Unlocked on 702 Drive with John Perlman. Tuesdays on 702. Brought to you by Standard Bank Business and Commercial, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
The Money Show.
Investment School.
23 minutes now to 8, time for Investment School on The Money Show. Tonight, this evening, we're talking about private assets and how do they fit in terms of the investment opportunities that are available to you. You know, of course, how stock markets work, but private assets, in other words, unlisted companies, are something very different. Chantel Marks is the head of equity research at FNB Wealth and Investments. She's sitting opposite me in the studio. Asanda Norcha is the chief investment officer at Mazi Asset Management. Good evening to you both, and thanks so much for agreeing to do this. I really appreciate it. Asanda, let me start with you. So we're used to Stephen going on about what happened on the JSE today, and those are public companies. What would be the key feature of private companies or private assets? Sandra Notche, I'm not sure if you're actually with us at this point. All right, we'll sort that out. In the meantime, Chantel, what for you would be the big difference between the two?
So you said it in your introduction as well. The one is publicly available. You know, you get all the information. You get pricing information every single day. Access is quite straightforward. Private assets are more difficult to access, particularly directly if you're looking at a
private equity vehicle, they'll have lots of different companies in there. A company like Starlink, for example, is a private company. A company like Neuralink is a private company, but these are companies that we hear a lot about, but you cannot buy it on a stock exchange. Price discovery is very difficult because you don't have daily trading in the shares of these companies, and it almost works exactly the same way for something like private credit or an infrastructure investment, for example, wanting to invest in a specific toll route.
Okay, so basically the big difference is there's a huge difference in the information that you have about them.
Yes, and I think further differences would be the risk profile. It'll be slightly more risky because you don't get that kind of daily price clearing, because you don't know exactly what the price is and what there's not a lot of people looking at that specific asset. It can be more chunky in terms of that valuation. And then I think the way that it's regulated is also different, because when you look at how a public company is regulated by the JSE, for example, it will be different when you're looking at private equity.
I'm going to come to that in a bit more detail in a moment. Asanda Noche, good evening. I understand we have you now. If you have so much more information about public companies, why, as an investor, would you want to look at a private company when you obviously have so much less information about them?
Yeah, thanks, Stephen, and glad to be here with you. Good evening to everyone. Hi, Chantal. I think some of the reasons that are sometimes given, or some of the observations, are the returns that are associated with those assets. So there's actually an interesting case last week actually, a company called Optasia that listed. And it listed from having been private, where presumably some of the investors that came in early there might have gotten some better returns or higher returns potentially, just given the startup phase, and as it was the company was sort of ramping up and getting scaled, versus perhaps what one might expect going forward. So not to say it's a bad company. I think it'll still deliver very good returns, but I think some of the features, as you say, Stephen, are for the most part it's returns. But I think there's also the element of maybe sometimes unproven business models, or things that are more of a venture sort of nature, where there's still uncertainty around how the business model pans out, how the the business will actually sort of progress, and will it succeed or not, versus business models that are well known, a bank, we kind of know how it operates, and so that's more well accepted or well understood as an operation.
Okay, so is it as simple as saying, Asanda, if I come up with an idea, let's just call my idea XYZ, no one knows what's going to happen. So I'm going to go to Asanda and Chantal, and I'm going to say, invest in my company. I'm not going to list it, and invest 100 Rand, and you might lose 50 Rand of that, or you might end up with a company where your share is worth 1,000 Rand each, because it's at such a new stage. Whereas if you go and try and do that with ShopRite, yes, their share price might go up and down, but they're such a mature company, it's not going to expand at the same rate.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of these what they call some in the private asset space, unicorns, so companies that have expanded and have grown from absolutely nothing to billions of dollars in valuation. A lot of these things have come up from exactly what you're saying. So you think of something like Facebook. Social media didn't exist. Sort of whatever, a decade or a half ago, whatever it is. But it's something that we are all now well versed in and interact with and use. AI is a very good example where OpenAI is not a listed entity, but it started from somewhere where somebody had an idea and thought it would be a good idea, brought some investors together, but it would have been difficult for that idea to be ventilated in a public space, because again, there's all sorts of maybe expectations. What do the financials look like? What is the history in terms of the performance of that company? And all of that stuff is not available at maybe its inception. I think also you might find instances where, interesting cases where listed companies might embark on new ideas or things that are, or maybe invest in things that are not known just yet, because they can maybe see that there's an opportunity or something that's maybe in their value chain which might be interesting or disruptive. So that's also another angle where people who maybe have got some knowledge of the space might see potential, and that's where your VC investors and the types sort of come in.
Chantel, I can go online, not now because trading's closed, but I could go, find a way very quickly to buy shares in a company on the JSE. And once I had a trading account, there are all sorts of things I could do. It's obviously very different for private companies. It's much harder to get any of the action. How do you go about doing it?
Yeah, so I mean, if you want to invest directly from a venture capital perspective, startup investing, you'll have to get involved in kind of like an angel investing network, which is quite complicated. But for the everyday retail investor, I think the best way is probably to look at listed private equity companies. So there are large ones, particularly globally, that you can invest in. Private companies like KKR, or private equity investment companies like KKR, Blackstone, for example. There are a few examples of those. In the South African space, we've had a few, but they didn't do particularly well. African Rainbow Investments delisted a few months ago that's exactly what this company was actually offering investors, a liquid entry point listed on the JSE, but investing in private equity or private companies. You can also look at unit trusts. I think in the global context, it's more widely available. Something like an ARC venture ETF, where you'll have access to a Neuralink and an OpenAI and a SpaceX, for example. So, I think that there are different ways. When it comes to other private assets, lots of infrastructure funds listed as well, exchange-traded funds and unit trusts. Unfortunately, just in the South African context, we don't really have a lot of that available.
Asanda, you clearly have to do a lot more homework than you would on the JSE. I mean, for lots of reasons. You have to do a lot more discovery, if that's the right word.
Absolutely. So I think Chantal mentioned it earlier. In the public space, companies undertake to provide information, regular updates, audited financials, and need to follow specific guidelines as far as how they interact with the public. So information needs to be made available to everyone. Sort of no selective disclosure and things like that. Even things like being monitored by the FSCA in terms of insider trading and so on. So contrast that with the private space, where it's effectively, I think, if we take it to its bare bones, it could be a bunch of us sitting around the braai and saying, guys, maybe we should start a business X and Y. And so from that point, there's no regulation or nobody who's overseeing that enterprise as it starts. There's nobody who says, look, you need to disclose to person XYZ or to everybody, information about your company. And that's why I guess it's private at that point. And so investing in such, it really needs you to, as you say, undertake like significant due diligence, understand it quite well, because unfortunately there aren't those protections. And that's why also I think from a regulatory perspective, these are, I think the regulators are sometimes concerned about what people get themselves into. You often hear about these Ponzi schemes and things like that. So there is then reasons why you need to have investor protections, just because the information is not as easily available.
Chantal, regulation here is very important, and obviously nowhere near as tight as the JSE.
Yeah, I mean, so if you think about a private company, they still have to, for example, report appropriately to the tax authorities, right? But you don't have the JSE rules that are governing the way that they're trading, and you don't have the same kind of level of regulatory oversight. That is why the vehicle that you choose to invest through is so important, because if you are going through a private equity company that invests in lots of different private companies, those companies are listed, so they will be subjected to those types of rules and that type of oversight. Similarly, an exchange traded fund or a unit trust has a very strict regulatory regime to which they are beholden. So I think that really will help. The same thing when it comes to private equity and infrastructure. If the vehicle that you're investing through is regulated, you are protected to a certain extent. It's a lot riskier to go at it alone, to say, I know this guy and he's starting that business and I think he is great and his idea is grand and I'm going to put 10,000 Rand into that business.
I mean, I suppose the fact is, and we can't get away from this, Chantel, there is more risk here.
Yes, absolutely. So I think one of the other reasons I also like a kind of a pooled investment, so going for a company that is invested in many different companies or an exchange traded fund or unit trust that does the same thing, it diversifies your risk across these different holdings. You won't just be exposed to one single company. And even within that, I would suggest that it not make up the bulk of your total investment portfolio. It's potentially a really nice sweetener. It's got a different risk return profile, so it's a good diversifier, but it shouldn't be the only thing that you hold.
We're speaking to Chantel Marks, Head of Equity Research at F&B Wealth and Investments, and Asanda Norche is the Chief Investment Officer at Mazi Asset Management. We're looking at private companies versus public companies on The Money Show on Investment School. It's 10 minutes to 8.
This festive, when your family gathers, feed them the Nando's Festive Fill-Up meal. Feed Auntie, who's in charge of the key to that storeroom. And feed that niece that makes the strict grandparents do TikTok challenges. And that cousin that watches the same movie that comes in part 1, 2, 3, 4, and many more. Yeah, you can feed it too. Gather them all for the Nando's Festive Fill-Up meal for only $3.99. Eat at Nando's and pay 40 Rand less. Nando's, oh, what a place.
Betway's exclusive new games are taking the world by storm. Featuring massive Megaways jackpots. Take your shot on Cash and Riches, Wolf Blades, Gallo Gold Brunos, and many more incredible experiences for you to choose from. You're guaranteed to find a new ultra fun favorite. Get way more only at Betway. Betway is licensed by the Mpumalanga Economic Regulator. No persons under the age of 18 are permitted to gamble. NRGP counseling line 0800 006 008. All events are fixed odds betting games.
What do partners of the Gates Foundation do when facing the world's toughest challenges? They keep going. From discovering a plastic drape that helps detect excessive postpartum bleeding faster, to developing better bed nets to kill malaria-carrying mosquitoes, to researching an RSV vaccine that could save hundreds of thousands of children. For every problem, there are people who prove that progress is possible. The Gates Foundation, partners of human potential. Learn more at gatesfoundation.org/keep going.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by Absa CIB, advancing Red Rocket's ambitions with Discovery Green as the off-taker to power Africa's future through affordable, renewable energy.
The Money Show.
Investment School.
Chantel Marks, the Head of Equity Research at F&B Wealth and Investments. Asanda Norche is Chief Investment Officer at Mazi Asset Management. We're talking tonight about private companies versus public companies and when you should invest in which. It's 8 minutes now to 8. Asanda, is liquidity an issue? In other words, so yes, you come across companies you want to invest in, you have ways of doing that, but the shares are not traded nearly as often as they are in the public space. And does that mean that if you wanted to sell them suddenly, or if you just wanted to get into them, it's actually much harder than it would be otherwise? Liquidity is a big issue here.
Absolutely. And I think one of the sort of the key hallmarks or differences between private companies and those that are that are public is that ability to make or be able to either buy and sell shares. So it's not just about the buying or effectively also the selling. So yes, I might be able to come across somebody who's got a great idea, and I get in knee deep, put my money in. All of a sudden, I need the money for something else. Not so easy to exit because the shares that I hold are not publicly traded. So a stock exchange is effectively a market that enables buyers and sellers to come together. They don't need to know each other. They don't need to be in any proximity to each other. So, it could be somebody who's across the world that I'm buying shares from or selling shares to. Whereas in the private space, I'd probably need to sit down, negotiate with somebody else who might be interested in buying the shares. Then we're going to have a haggle around the price. Then we need to sign share register or sign over the shares to the person. But I think I want to maybe just add, Stephen, that in terms of I think if I look at investment philosophies and maybe the ability of an economy to invest and find new ideas, find innovative ideas, move countries forward in terms of technology or even just investment in new ideas. The private space is actually quite essential. There's somebody was saying to me the other day, in America, there's the saying goes, there's money for every idea.
Yeah.
I.e., if I come up with an idea, somebody's is got the appetite, the mindset, and the philosophy, or even just the culture of investing in these things. And that's why you then have them coming up with all manner of fantastic ideas and things that we now see in the rest of the world. So I think yes, there are those difficulties with private investments, but I suppose as a society, it's maybe something we need to think about, talk about more, and see how we can perhaps open that up as an avenue to ourselves, because that's actually how we're going to fund entrepreneurs who come up with great ideas, and that actually moves our economy and our country forward.
I always find it amazing. Americans are prepared to take risks, and the rest of us aren't. And there's so many interesting reasons as to why that may be. Chantel, as part of that, you would also then look at impact investing, because that would be something very much in the private space. We're going to invest in this because we think this is going to change the world for the better.
Yeah, and I think if you consider venture capital and angel investing specifically, it really does result in a better outcome from a societal perspective if you are an early stage investor, because you are actively participating in promoting new ideas, developing new businesses, and by extension, job opportunities. So I think that it really can have a massive impact. And even in other kind of private asset spaces like infrastructure, we know that the multiplier effect of investing in infrastructure is massive. By multiplier effect, I mean that for every rand you spend, 3 rand goes back into the economy ultimately. So yeah, I think impact investing plays a huge role. And when you are looking at buying these private assets directly, when investing in a private company, it must also align with your kind of personal philosophy as well, not only your investment philosophy, because you are probably going to be with this company for a very long time and be a little bit more involved than you would be otherwise.
Do you get to play more of an active role in talking to management?
I guess it depends how big you are as a shareholder. So it's very similar to a large listed company in the sense that the big shareholders have the big say. And I think that the same will be true in the private company space as well.
Asanda, we sometimes see, it looks to me almost like we see a bit of a pendulum swinging back and forth here, where companies kind of go through a phase of delisting from the JSE, and then suddenly you have a lot more companies listing. Is there anything that makes a trend? Is there no trend at all when it comes to that? I know the JSE's been very worried about it, but is there something that sort of leads to a season, if I can call it that, of new listings and a season of delistings?
Yeah, it's very interesting that for various reasons, companies will cite or some companies will cite different reasons for maybe wanting to list or delist. Some companies will say, for instance, delisting from the JSE. Chantal mentioned African Rainbow Capital. So they said, look, this market is not assigning or ascribing the correct valuation, to their business. And so, they think that it's not worthwhile because they can't raise capital at the right price. Whatever capital you may raise on the market, it makes it, dilutive for existing investors, because you're going to issue shares at a much lower share price than what they think the company is actually worth. Other companies will say, if I look at South Africa, it's probably, from an emerging market perspective, it's a liquid market. Money can come in and out in terms of international investors. There's regulation. There's the a large pool of capital that's available that comes through the JSE. So I think it very much depends on, I suppose, let's say the outlook of a company, the phase in which it's at from a developmental perspective in its own growth and so on. But I think definitely, price, discovery, the valuation that the market ascribes, the interest and the level of involvement and support that a company can get on the public market, that all plays a role in terms of the attractiveness, in terms of the company's sort of willingness to be public or not.
Sunda Notcha, thank you. Chief Investment Officer at Mazi Asset Management. Chantel Marks, Head of Equity Research at F&B Wealth and Investments. Thank you very much indeed for coming in. Both of you, thank you very much indeed for being a part of Investment School on The Money Show.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by Absa CIB, advancing Red Rocket's ambitions with Discovery Green as the off-taker to power Africa's future through affordable, renewable energy.
Lots of red, I'm afraid, in the US markets. The Dow Jones is down 0.94%, the Nasdaq down 1.78%, the S&P 500 1.09% at the moment. We were talking about a correction earlier in the week. A correction's gonna come. To paraphrase a terrible song. Well, that's the Money Show for tonight. We're back tomorrow. Good evening, 8 o'clock.
This is EWN.
Good evening, I'm Maki Malapo. The head of the Investigating Directorate Against Corruption, Andrea Johnson, has defended the arrest of crime intelligence boss Dimsana Khumalo. She says Khumalo's arrest by IDAC investigators was not dramatic, dismissing claims made by KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla to destabilize organised crime investigations. Johnson was responding to questions before Parliament's ad hoc committee investigating police corruption. Babala Ndenze has more.
Sani Khumalo was arrested along with 6 co-accused on charges of fraud and corruption linked to the appointment of 30-year-old Dineo Mokwele to an executive position within crime intelligence, despite having no policing experience. Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi had questioned his arrest for what he said was essentially an HR matter. Mkhwanazi also described the arrest of Khumalo as being dramatic, but Andrea Johnson says this was not the case.
And I do recall that Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi indicated there was a dramatic arrest. There was no dramatic arrest. There were just 2 IDAC investigators. They approached him, spoke to him, and he went to the car. Even at the time of the conversations, his security detail was right there.
Johnson says the arrests of Khumalo and his co-accused were justified because they made misrepresentations about Mokwele's skills and experience for the job. Babalo Ndenze, Eyewitness News, Parliament.
Controversial group Operation Dudula has threatened to visit schools next week to ensure children they believe to be undocumented foreign nationals do not benefit from the public education system. This despite a recent court ruling that found the group's practice of demanding identity documents from patients at public healthcare facilities is illegal. The organization argues the judgment only prevents them from interfering with hospitals and clinics, but not so much public schools. Alpha Ramushan has more.
Operation Dudula believes the recent court ruling will enable undocumented foreign nationals to exploit government resources without accountability. The movement turned political party argues that South Africans should be top priority and that undocumented foreign nationals should not have access to public healthcare services. Operation Dudula leader Zandile Tabula says public schools should also prioritize South African citizens.
The court does not stop our intentions, our intended operations at the schools. It doesn't. Now this means on Monday, the 11th of November, we will be at the schools.
The group is now appealing the Gauteng High Court's ruling, barring it from blocking foreign nationals from accessing public healthcare facilities. Alpha Ramshwana, Eyewitness News.
Civil rights group Action Society says there must be justice in the assault case involving former bodyguards of Deputy President Paul Mashatile. Today, the 8 men who are attached to the SAPS's VIP Presidential Protection Unit appeared before the Randburg Magistrates Court where they failed to get their charges dropped. The officers are accused of assaulting civilians on the side of the Johannesburg N1 highway in July 2023. Tabiso Goba was in court.
The Randburg Magistrates Court dismissed the main charges in the Section 174 discharge application of the 8 accused officers. They all will continue to face charges for assault GBH and causing malicious damage to property. They were all found not guilty of defeating the ends of justice, while only a select few will be charged with the violating of the Firearms Controls Act and negligent driving. Spokesperson for Action Society, Juanita Dupria.
We are very satisfied with the ruling today, even though some of the more minor charges were dropped. We are satisfied that the main charges, the ones that we are concerned about, is continuing, and that in March finally we will approach justice to be served.
The trial resumes on the 23rd of March next year. Tabiso Goba, Eyewitness News.
The Cape Winelands municipality says while more support has been dispatched to extinguish several fires burning in different areas today, firefighting efforts could continue overnight. 2 houses and a wooden structure have been destroyed by the fire in the Waterval area outside Tulbagh. Another fire burning in the veld adjacent to the landfill site near Wellington is also making its way towards homes. The Cape Winelands District Municipality's Joanne Otto says a third veld fire is burning near Valdevie outside Paarl.
11 fire vehicles and crews from Cape Wineland stations are on scenes with support from Drakensberg municipality where possible. Firefighters report extremely difficult conditions and operations are likely to continue throughout the night.
At the same time, Cape Town Fire and Rescue Services also dealt with a veld fire above Military Road on Signal Hill today, but that blaze has since been extinguished and firefighters continue to monitor any flare-ups. Staying in the Western Cape, parts of the province are set to experience a heat wave over the next few days. Temperatures in the low to high 30s are expected over Cape Town, the West Coast and the Cape Winelands. Cape Town Disaster Risk Management's Sonika Latachan is urging residents to stay hydrated, stay out of direct sunlight and wear light clothing.
Increased temperatures also raise the risk of veld fires. Please be very careful around open flames and remember to report any sign of fire or any other emergency to the city's Public Emergency Communication Center at 021 480 7700.
Gold's trading at $3,984.53 an ounce. The rand's at 17.40 to the dollar, at 22.80 to the pound, at 20.07 to the euro. Brent crude oil's at $62.93 a barrel. A look at your weather. Cloudy skies in store for Gauteng tomorrow with afternoon scattered thunder showers expected. Joburg will drop to overnight lows of 13 degrees and peak at highs of 18. Pretoria is at 15 and 20. Vereeniging is at 13, reaching highs of 17. Clear skies for the mother city, along with fresh southeasterly winds tomorrow at a low of 18 and a high of 34 degrees. The top story in Eyewitness News this hour. The head of the Investigating Directorate Against Corruption, Andrea Johnson, has defended the arrest of crime intelligence boss Dumsane Khumalo.
EWN, in touch, in tune and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
Aubrey Masango.
Live streaming countrywide on Prime Media Plus, DSTV channel 856,
92.7 and 106 FM.
It's 7 minutes after 8 o'clock and welcome to the show. My name is Aubrey Masango. I'll be with you until midnight and I'm looking forward to some great conversation tonight. Very, very, very interesting lineup put together by our ace team of producers, Teddy and Nziki. And I'm really looking forward to being part of the show with you this evening. In the first hour of the show, Dr. Ndomfigile Mjali, MD and CEO of Shout It Now, talks to us about an interesting phenomenon that is